Thank you for being here, and thank you for having me over. I'm Robert. I'm design system lead for NL Design System, and yeah, I'm going to talk a bit about why we work on this project, NL Design System, and how you can benefit from some of our approaches, and how you can benefit from our work. And here we go. So NL Design System is like an open source community, a project for the Dutch government basically, with about 650 users in Slack, but there's also a lot of people who are not in Slack but just are on LinkedIn, so probably it's around 1,000 people. And we kind of want to work together to create a more accessible, inclusive experience for people who have to deal with the government, like citizens as well as businesses. And it's really a nice bunch of people. We work online, we work together, and we benefit from a lot of the work that we do, that we share. And it started kind of like 5 years ago. A lot of people who were working in government projects had to deal with accessibility guidelines, and they did some fabulous UX design and made some fabulous websites. And then they moved to a different employer or a different project. And then they were like, oh, we built all those nice things. And why do I have to start all over again? Because, yeah, well, I get paid for it, but also citizens kind of deserve better than this. Why don't we start to collaborate? And people started to nag their employers to, why not make this project open source? Why not share our components? Why not collaborate with other municipalities, other government organizations? And yeah, people started to kind of meet up and brainstorm about, well, let's just do this thing. We can make one big design system for the entire government, and then everything will be accessible. And if we build it, everybody will use it. It will be great. Well, it didn't really turn out that way because there are a lot of practical things that you have to fix before you can collaborate with everyone here. But we had one thing in common, and that's why we still work together after 5 years. We want to make consistently great user experiences for people who use government websites. And that's a lot of work, and it's also listening a lot to users. And like, I don't know how much of your time you spend on listening to users, but I bet it's not more than 10% of your time. We really need to involve those users, and we need to collaborate to get those insights. And yeah, it takes a lot of collaboration to take a fair share of user input to make our products. Our bunch of people, we started meeting up in real life, and then we kind of moved to Slack, online chat spaces, and now we collaborate a lot offline or online as well. Also helped, of course, by the pandemic. And basically, around the time of the pandemic, we got an innovation budget from the government, around 150K. To start a team and basically build a design system that the entire government can use. Well, of course, that really wasn't enough money to do anything really. But we made a head start, and we started to talk to everyone, like, what do you actually need to use the design system that basically other people made? And well, first of all, they said, we definitely cannot use a design system that other people make, because like, we are from Amsterdam, we have our own brand identity, we cannot use other people's design systems at all. And other people said, well, yeah, that's a great open source design system you've got there, but it uses Angular, and we use like typo3 templates or React or something else. So basically what we did with the 150K innovation budget is figure out and prototype how those people can actually work together. And that's kind of how the core team got this project up and running around 4 years ago. And the great thing is that after these 4 years, we still have a lot of people who really want to work together and reuse each other's work and build upon each other's work. instead of being like the famous person who built a component that everybody uses. So now we work to make a design system that works for a lot of organizations, and that means like solving technical problems, but as well as just people problems. How do you stay up to date with what other people make? How do you like schedule work together? How do you know who's working on what things, etc. And I've got a couple of things that I can share with you that you can also perhaps apply to your own communities. So first of all, I've been talking about design system a bit. What is a design system? So design system, first and foremost, I always say it's like a people thing. It's about collaborating and not really about setting the rules. Because a design system is not about just making one perfect thing and then everybody uses it and you will be done. It's about like the collaboration when you make a thing and you want to change it, and then how do you go about it? How do you make sure that everybody starts to use a new, better version? And to do that, you need to have trust from people that they can install the update safely, that you have made the right judgment call, that they had a say, for example. People want to be involved. And that's a big part of what a design system is. So it's not only about design, it's also just about how do you build a healthy community, how do you build trust, and how do you involve specialists. But in a day-to-day use, once you have a design system up and running, it's also a couple of practical things. So it's a design kit. If you want to make prototypes, you have a design kit in Figma, where you can make prototypes and start doing user tests already, even if you don't have an actual working product yet. And that's also, of course, what NL Design System is building. You have components for developers. And of course, every developer has their own framework, so you have to have a lot of implementations of those components. And I'll get to that, how you can make that work. And you have color guidelines, of course, and those color guidelines, like for the entire Dutch government, like we're not GovUK, we don't say like, this is the color blue and black and white, and that's about it. Those are the colors. In Dutch, we have this thing called poldermodel, which basically means nobody gets to decide what color you're going to use. So basically that's what we're catering for. Of course, there's typography guidelines. So some guidelines are like use this font for print and this for digital products. But it sometimes also means like this is a really nice font that everybody wants to use, but it's protected, only the central government can use it. And there's also space guidelines. Space really make up a big part of your page, and space is actually pretty important to understand the page. Also for people with low literacy, it can really give a sense of hierarchy to the page. And so I made a screenshot or made a picture of a day where we just were working to fill the spreadsheet of how many pixels should be between this and that component. And basically we made a spreadsheet with like 1,000 decisions. So you probably have all kinds of different backgrounds. You might have different roles in your jobs. So why should you care about the design system? Well, one of the things is it's more fun to work on a system. If you're just working on this one page, you might fix something or do something really nicely, but you might not benefit from it next week or like a year later when you might even forgot you made this really nice thing. A system is really nice because once you start building the system, you can use it in new and different ways, but also if you share it with others, they will use it in very new and exciting ways. For example, we shared our component library, our design kit for the The Hague design system. And like after half a year, I found out that they built an entire new product with it, where like 6 municipalities had their own My Municipality personal login space, which was fully designed based on the design system where we made an open source Figma kit. So well, that was a nice surprise. Also, it really helps if you have multiple sites that kind of need to have the same identity and the same look and feel. Even though they're on different platforms, it really helps to manage it in less time. It also helps to get the details right, and it makes it also worthwhile to get the details right, because sometimes you're like, why should I really care about this table, that the numbers align really nicely, or yeah, when I click on reveal password, I made this thing where like the O is 0 is slashed, so you can really tell the difference between a 0 and an O. Was it really worth it? Like, there were so many other things to do in the sprint. But once you put it into the system, you basically make everyone benefit from this. And it becomes a much more worthwhile investment. And of course, details are nice to get right, so maybe it makes your job more fun. It also really helps to roll out design changes more quickly. So a design system is, as I mentioned, not only for having like one consistent user interface, it's also about being able to learn and to adapt to new insights quickly. So for example, we learned from user research that also low literacy users, they didn't really want to click on the red button, because they, even though the red button, all the buttons were red, but it had to do with their income, and they were kind of unsure what the red button was going to do, but it was just about going to the next page of the form. It was totally safe to use, but red had this association with danger. So once you have a design system, and I'm showing here on the right side a screenshot of a package where the design system, design sessions live. For Utrecht, we released like over 1,000 versions in the last 3 years. So that means every time we make a different decision in Figma, for example, we can quickly roll it out to all the sites that use it and deploy the latest versions of the design system everywhere. And of course, it also helps to comply with accessibility laws. So it's a lot of fun sometimes to get the accessibility thing right and make the perfect accessible component, but you probably don't have time for this all the time. So a design system is a very nice place to collect all the things where you did have time to do it in an accessible way and promote those like great versions of the implementation. And then like the things that are not yet in the design system because they weren't accessible, then maybe somebody will come along and have time in their project, or have like they use something accessible in their previous projects and they know how to add it to the design system. So last year for our project was kind of interesting because we started out with a small group and this large ambition and not a lot of funding. And Amsterdam joined our project, and that was very surprising because Amsterdam is always like the folks who do their own way, and yeah, they would rather be admired than like that our open source code is used. At least that's the impression that some of us have. And well, they joined, and now they share their own NL design system components with our project and with everybody free to use. The Hague already joined like 3 years ago, but now after 3 years they finally published their website. So not just one project, but their big main website was renewed and published with NL design system components that they made themselves and contributed. And my municipality was published, and their forms were published as well. Like 3 products basically with our open source components. Also, Logius joined, and Logius, we did a kickoff with them with a lot of UX designers and developers. And Logius are the makers of DigiD, which is like the main login thing in the Netherlands for government websites. And like Mijn Overheid, which is like My Government, where you log in to see all your details and all your official messages. And they joined, and they're now starting their own design system with NL Design System community. And yeah, they're getting up and running. They're starting to hire people for the team. Also, Open Forms is really cool. Like, we worked together with folks from Open Forms for like 2 years, and now they went live with the components that the municipality of Utrecht made. So they made form components for their own website. Open Forms now uses it in their product, and now everybody can use it in, now, for example, Rotterdam. I just heard last week they went live with Open Forms with their own brand identity, but with the components that Utrecht made. Also, yeah. Oh yeah, of course. I know what this slide is about. So we did this large thing of user research. So we worked together with the Association of Dutch Municipalities, and they sponsored user research. We worked together with them to make like the perfect form, that we worked together with a lot of designers to really tweak all the details that we thought would be best for users. And we got people who were had low literacy, who were blind, who could see only a very small bit. People who could barely use their arms, they got to use the form and fill out the form and give their feedback. And they were pretty happy with it, like really happy actually. And we had this thing on the start page where it says like it takes about like 10 minutes to fill out this form, and the screen reader user was like finished in like 2 minutes, the fastest user of all of them. So yeah, that was fun. And we also got more people in our core team. So we started out with 3 people, and now we're like heading towards 7, 8 or so. And sneak peek for this year, we're hiring a new UX designer, a visual designer, a new front-end developer. We just have a new DevOps engineer. So a lot of cool things are happening. But about that community of specialists, so who are actually working on this? A lot of people in the community have their specialisms, and we ask them basically to build the things that they need for their own projects, but share them as open source things. So if you want to build a button, for example, that's what Utrecht did, like one of the first things. They built it for themselves in a really nice, accessible way. They documented it for their suppliers to use. But they made the decision that all the colors for Utrecht were variables, so everybody could use it with their own brand. So the button code doesn't have like Utrecht blue in it or anything. You can adapt it to any brand that you want. And I'll get to that later. But that was the main, that was the trick to get other people invested in their code and make their code better. So now they also get a lot of bug fixes from other municipalities and other projects. They didn't make everything, like for example the tabs component or the accordion. They use from other projects, like The Hague made the tabs thing, and now Utrecht uses it. But the biggest part of the community is like the users. They're not like a super active part of our community, they're not in our Slack, but it's the thing that makes our community so great. Because because we have so many organizations working together, we actually have a lot of users that we can gather input from. So like one team might have access to like a blind user and learn a lot from this person, and yeah, this way the real strength of our community is having so much users. They listen, they talk to our UX researchers, and there are quite a lot of them. And then together with the UX researchers, we watch them use our products. And we join Miro, and we make like hundreds of sticky notes, like everything that we think should be better, all the things that didn't really work well for a user, and then we add it to the backlog. We have quite a lot of UX designers. They work together on their Figma designs. For example, they work together on icon designs, for example, and I'll get to that later. And they also made Figma designs where you can swap out the brand for another brand. So we have a lot of templates that you can load into Figma and can reuse for different projects with your own brand, which is great for user testing. We have visual designers, of course, that share their visual designs, and like color palettes, of course, are protected. Those are not open source, but they share the process of how they get to those colors. We have accessibility specialists, And of course, we do a lot of testing, and they write a lot of documentation. We have DevOps engineers. DevOps engineers are really nice to have in your team, because with them, you can automate a lot of the testing, which really improves collaboration. So if you are really sure that you can roll out a feature quickly, for example, by spinning up a development environment or a test environment for every change that gets made, you can publish like 10 features every day. No harm done. We have content writers. So content writers are super useful to have, because we find out that if you construct a sentence really clearly, really nicely, like the understanding and the speed that people go through a page is really improved. And together with content writers and UX designers, we try a lot of different phrases. And then we also copy those phrases as a starting point for a new project. So we don't just say, oh, we copy the button and like the navigation. We also copy what is in the button, and we also copy the error message, because a lot of iterations went into the design of the error message, for example. And of course, we have some developers. So for collaboration, we try to make it very easy to collaborate, and not only within a team, but also across teams, and not only like developers, how they can collaborate with other developers, but also how you can collaborate, like how a designer can collaborate with a developer. So one of the things we do for developers is that we have a template repository. And actually almost all the teams that use it, or that joined NL Design System, use the template repository, because we have a lot of shared standards, and basically all the code looks the same. No matter where you go, if I make a bug fix somewhere, I'm not like, oh my god, how do those people write code even? This is terrible. Basically all the code looks the same across all NL Design System projects. And you get a lot of free features with it, also DevOps features. So from day one, if you fork the project and set up the publish token, you already have a publication of your component library with your example component. Which is great, because once you have an actual open source publication of your design system with your one fake component, that means you can install it in your project, and you can collaborate with the product teams. So they can already start using your very first components on the day that you start out with the template repository. And that really helps a lot, because you shouldn't build a design system in isolation. You should really build a design system and like start getting usage from it right away. Also, I mentioned designers working together with developers. Actually, who needs developers anyway? Because designers, with our setup, can even publish branches from Figma straight to GitHub, and they get branch deployments of their features. So our designers can make design changes and can say, I want to make this button look different. They push to GitHub, and they get their own storybook with their version of the new design. And that's in big part to the Figma Tokens Studio plugin. We also encourage development to work together across frameworks and templates, because a lot of design systems have documentation for just one framework. Like they figured we need to start a design system, so first thing we're going to decide which framework are we going to use, then we'll document everything in that. We went a kind of different route. We serialized all the output of the framework, and we just show the HTML code. Because if you, like, we still use React for most of our components, but if you view the source of our design system, you just get the HTML. Because that's what you can use if you build an email template or build like a WordPress template. Also, like, testing really helps with collaboration. So testing might be a boring subject, but we try to make it kind of easy. The fun thing about testing is if you do it really well and you have a very good coverage of your design system, then it's very nice if you get pull requests with a change suggestion from somebody who didn't work on the project before, because you can just trust that they didn't break something that they didn't know about. because for first-time contributors, it's so easy to break something. But if you have a screenshot of every variant of every component and you immediately get a message if one pixel has shifted, then you can quickly make like a first-time contributor, like an actual contributor, and see the changes live within like a day or so. And also for that to be able to review quickly, if somebody takes the time to make a pull request, you're like, oh, I really don't have time today to spin up a test environment. All our projects get branch deploys by default, so you can just quickly check out what the result is and decide if you want to merge it. I mentioned testing with screenshots. So this is what it looks like. This is a change that somebody made to the DHake design system, and you can see like they made some areas green on the right side. Those are the pixels that have shifted because of some change was made. That means if you review something, you can quickly know where did it have effect, and you can decide to approve or deny the change. So it takes quite a big step to contribute to somebody else's code, right? Like you might break something, you don't know those people, and to be able to be like a hospitable community, I would encourage you to stay vulnerable. I think this is one of the big successes of NL Design System. We're just a bunch of people, and there are some people who can do a lot of crazy stuff with code or with Figma, but you shouldn't be too impressed by them because they're actually really nice people and they want to help you out. But to encourage everybody to be nice to each other, it really helps to also make mistakes and to be able to show that you're not perfect either. So the biggest tip I can give you if you want to start a design system is start to work open source from day one. If you don't start to work open source from day one, what will happen is that you're like, oh, there's this bug and I'm going to share this with this impressive developer or something. And yeah, I should definitely first fix this bug before we're making this project open source. Yeah, but then life happens, you won't get this bug, and there's a deadline, and you write some more crappy code, and you're thinking, how am I going to explain this to my friends? I'm a better engineer than this. Everybody is like this. So just start out, your project is open source, and you can improve things along the way, that's fine. Also something that I would encourage you to do is demo your progress that you have while it's still work in progress. Don't show the finished product to your community. Show the thing that while you're still working on it, because then people can start to feel involved, give you tips or feedback, and they feel like it might actually have some effect. Instead of like, oh, we just had this lounge party and we drank champagne, it was super nice. And yeah, now I started to work on this other project, and now I'm going to demo it. And by the way, if you have any suggestions, there's definitely no time and budget for it. So just stay vulnerable, demo your work in progress. Also, ask questions to the community in public channels. So I get a lot of questions over direct messages, but I try to answer them in public channels because it shows that everybody has some questions, and like our documentation isn't perfect either. So it's a good source for documentation writers to find things that are important to cover in our documentation. So yeah, if you're going to ask a question to somebody in an open source project, try to do it in a public channel. It really helps others as well to ask their questions. So what do we do to cross organization boundaries? Well, we just built upon projects that our people have made. So I mentioned this DHake project. That isn't the first thing that got forked basically in Figma. Also the municipality of Amsterdam, they built this new project for like rental agencies where they need to pay their taxes. They basically copied the designs from my DHake, and they adapted it to this new need. They made some tweaks to the design tokens, and now they made it their own project. And the cool thing is, a lot of the findings that they do have in user testing now also are learnings that are relevant for the DHake project. So maybe Amsterdam has time to do some of the improvements, but now The Hague also has the opportunity to contribute as well. One thing I really love is like spend more time with users. And user testing can be time consuming. It can be a lot of work to write up the report. It's a lot of work to like invite those people over, offer them coffee. It's like you basically need a couple of days. So you don't do it a lot. But if you do it, invite others over to their user testing. So for example, I had a lot of fun joining the bol.com user testing recently. They had a lot of blind users testing their website. And I was invited to join their user test, and there's so many things I learned. It was super interesting. But once you invest in user testing, try to share the results. And that's also what we did. We now have our like YouTube videos online with some of the most interesting parts of our user testing. We also have gebruikersonderzoeken.nl, which is like userresearch.nl, where we publish all our user research as open source. So you can copy all the findings. Everything is Creative Commons Zero license, so if you want to make an argument in your documentation, like we made the button this way because of like what this user said, you can just quote research. You don't need to have any attribution. You can just use it for your benefit. Also, for having an active community, it's important to stay informed. And we have a couple of things that work out for us really well. And one of the things is that we have our 2 weekly heartbeat. And I just realized like we started our 4th year this year of doing the heartbeat every 2 weeks, which was quite a struggle in the beginning because we just started out with this art team. We like faked it until we made it. We only had like 16 hours per week to work on the design system. That's not a lot to show amazing progress, and everybody thought like, you have so much budget, and like we now expect amazing things. And we showed up every 2 weeks. We were quite vulnerable because sometimes we didn't have a lot to show for, and our heartbeat presentation was like 3 minutes. It was kind of awkward. But now everybody joins our heartbeat and shares their progress, their contribution to the design system community, shares their research. And we now even have a YouTube channel, so you can watch it from your couch if you're feeling like it. And somehow a lot of people are feeling like it because the one from 2 weeks ago had like 200 views, which is not a lot in YouTube land, but to me it's quite a lot. We have our Slack. Slack is super nice to stay in touch with everybody and to quickly ask a question. You can do screen sharing really quickly and help somebody out. I met like hundreds of people over Slack in the last 3 years. And I can really encourage you to start a Slack, and if you're a non-profit, you might even get sponsorship, so you can even read the messages from like older than 3 months. Sometimes it's really nice like this to get together. And we do that also. We have our design reviews where like once a month we get together. This was like in the COVID period, but we now also have like a design open meetup once a month for like a day in Utrecht, very central in the Netherlands. And it's kind of nice to know who you're working with. We all have kind of the commitment to not have like not invented here syndrome. It's really nice to make your own button, but we try to reuse what's available as a first option. So if there's a component in the community that we can use, and there's a lot of them, we try to use that as even if it doesn't have all the features, because if there's a missing feature, I've got so much time on my hands because I didn't have to build a whole component. I can just make a pull request with this one feature. Also, it's really nice if you start with an existing component or existing design. You can start out with a lot of things that are in the design, a lot of value that has been captured that you might not even know about. So start with what users already like, and you might not know that this is what the users really like, But for example, we have this website here, the demo website from Open Gemeente. And there's icons in here where a lot of time and effort went into making these icons really nice. And there's also a lot of user testing for these icons as well. So the municipality of Utrecht regularly does user testing on these icons. Do people actually associate the icon with the subject of this link? And then you can decide like which is the best icon for this project or for this link. And these icons are open source and you can download them from Open Gemeente or gemeenteniconen.nl. And that's also what Municipality of Utrecht uses and we use in our demo websites as well. But you might think like it's just an icon, but it's also like a lot of value of users giving feedback, spending their time to get the icon right. Another reason to start out with these defaults is because there's many ways in which components or templates are accessible, which you might not even know about. So just to name a few, I'm going to give two examples. So one of them is forced colors mode. Like 3 years ago, I didn't realize this was a thing, but some people are like affected by light. They might feel pain if they see bright light. So they have a dark screen, and the only way they can visit websites if it's in their preferred colors. So for some people that's like super high contrast with a dark background, for others it's like a light background. And some people even need very low contrast, so they need like very dim gray text on a dark background. It takes some tweaks to your components to make this work. By default, all websites work perfectly like this. But if you start using CSS and disable borders and those things, the website might not be clear anymore. But a lot of these things are now built into the NL Design System components, and that's why it's really worthwhile to like start with the existing thing first, and then maybe adapt it, remix it. Another very surprising thing was we did some user research about how do people see your website. And we find out that like 5.8% of the website visitors for Utrecht.nl are using Google Translate. So they were wondering, like, should we spend time translating our website into different languages? Turns out people already fixed it. But if you are a developer, by default you say, I want a button on the left side. Well, the left side might be the wrong side in some scripts, like Arabic. So we rewrote all our CSS, which was a lot of work, but now it gets the border is on the side like where the text starts. So if the text direction is from right to left, the whole layout is flipped and everything works great. And even those users can use the website. And it turns out like 1% of the users of Utrecht.nl see the website like this. So what do we do to make a design system that works with so many brand identities? It works with design tokens, and design tokens are basically design decisions as code. And you start out with making a design guide of your the brand that you work on or the brand of your customer. So you make a file that has all the colors, all the fonts, all the like the things that are essential to recognizing the brand. And then you start with that. You make a file out of this. And this is like a JSON file that is being standardized. It's called design token JSON. And it can be exported to many different languages like CSS or JavaScript, Android, iOS contents, etc. You can say, like, you start out with a hex code, but then you can specify it to even more specific uses of your design system. So you can say this red goes to invalid, and then you can use it for like a border of your text box. So if you start out with like basic decisions for your design system, it looks like you just have to change the invalid color to like your brand red, or like an evil version of your brand's red. And if you want to tweak it for a text box to get higher contrast for some reason or for accessibility, you can do that with a very specific token. So basically all these parts of your design system are settings. And because all these settings are available, it allows you to collaborate with a lot of people who want to make different decisions.
For people who make products, it's also nice because you can make one product, maintain one code base, and you can apply different themes for it and have like very specific options available to adjust the theming. For example, this is an old version of Open Forms with like The Hague, Utrecht, and the central government style. Recent designs were made because a WordPress company wants to make the WordPress customizer for NL design system. So we started to make some prototypes where you can build your own theme and just like update the website in real time. We have this demo website for gemeente example, the municipality example. And you can like change all the variables in real time, and you can change the fonts, the spacing, etc. And this is something we're working on, and we're hoping that it will help get traction like for new municipalities to join our project. We also have a lot of guidelines that you can already benefit from. So we have form guidelines and style guidelines. We have form guidelines, for example, explaining how contrast should work and how people need your, like, how you should design your forms to make them accessible. And we also have design guidelines. For example, it can show you, don't use just a red border because not everybody can see the color red. You need to make some additional designs to make it visible to everybody. I just wanted to say, just copy our guidelines. Because everything is open source, you can copy it without attribution. So if you're making your own design documentation or your component documentation, you can copy all the things just straight from your website. Like we benefit if some website is more accessible because of this documentation. So feel free. And I would like to invite you to join our Heartbeat. It's every 2 weeks. You can sign up on nldesignSystem.nl, and you can see what folks from various companies and municipalities are doing. So, for example, there's Open Gemeente I know who is here regularly, and also, like, I think there are some typo municipalities as well that join the Heartbeat regularly. So, I hope to see some of you there. Thank you for listening.